Hello and welcome to our video. Today we're going to be doing a pencil sketch, and I'll put the image up there for you to have a look at the reference. It's a stone carved cherub, and it's prompted by a challenge for this week of daydreaming, and you'll see in the picture the reason why I've chosen daydreaming. So let's get on with it. I'm going to use several different pencils, one of which will be this, although I will sharpen it because it's fairly blunt. So let's crack on with it. Before I start, I just thought I'd show you this handy little pencil sharpener, because you might think, well, how do you sharpen something like this? Well, there are pencil sharpeners that have these kind of things on them. Not the traditional, you could put it in there and carefully do it, but these are specifically made to fit into these 2mm barrels. So I'll just sharpen it. And handy little tools, these, definitely recommended, especially if you're going to be doing pencil sketching. Let's see, nearly there. Yeah, that's about right, fairly sharp that. So yeah, definitely a great tool that. So let's make a start then. I'll get myself organised. So the head, because it's leaning and the cherub is asleep, is resting on his hands, isn't he? So let's get an angle in there, and I want to. I'm doing two-dimensional carving, really. That's basically what we're doing at this moment in time. I'm carving out the areas, and it's this cherub, it has a baby-like characteristic. So we've got to think to some extent like it's a baby in its face. So right, I don't know exactly how long this is going to take, but we'll see. And strangely, in this case, I'm gonna the ear comes up to that point, so it starts there. Now normally it should be down there at the nose, but we're looking at it at a strange angle, but we're seeing more of the top of the head than you would normally see. So the ear, which will just simply represent, for the time being, all these areas are basic structure lines. Let's see if we can get the hair in, and there's got this tuft of hair here, and another little bit, and then we're back round to that side of the face. Bring that round. It's all very nice and curly. I would imagine it's either a classical or neoclassical sculpture, this. So I don't want to make it look like as though I'm drawing a real face. I want to make it look like it's going to be a sculpture, that it is an actual sculpture. So, because if you were going to do anything else like that, you might as well just draw a baby's face. And not really necessary getting the extreme details in. And now we're starting to get the mouth in. And with it being a baby, it's not going to be a massive face, a massive mouth like that. Babies do tend to have, in fact actually I'm going to rub that out because the face is too long for a baby. And that's the good thing about drawing things very, very lightly. On the reference image it does have a fairly long nose, but for me that don't seem quite right. So I'm not going to do a huge nose, but I want to make sure that the facial proportions round here are quite crunched together, because that gives you that baby kind of face. Right, so we'll go like that. Chubby cheeks. Little chubby chin. And you can't really see the other part of the chin because of the, I represent that like that for the time being till we start getting into the detail. And there you go. It's a little baby asleep, or a cherub. Not that angels are babies, they're not. So I don't understand why they actually got to that stage that cherubs are depicted as babies. But that's culture for you, isn't it? And starting to get bits of now I've got the structure of the majority of things, and we can start being a bit more bold and decision making with details. Which is always nice because you can use that as references later on in the image. For that, I don't think that, me personally, I don't think that's round enough. So I'm gonna and again, gladly I can actually make alterations, and that's what it's about. Until you're absolutely happy with the drawing itself, keep bashing away at it until you get it to the right kind of aesthetic that you want. Until you're ready to make that final commitment to it. just got to, I'm a lot happier with that now, but let's get rid of some of this. So that's another tool that you could do with having when you're doing pencil sketching, is a decent quality rubber, and I've got to say these are very good. And just on the subject of this paper, I'm using watercolour paper today. Now normally watercolour paper has quite a bumpy surface and it's not the best to draw on, but this is, I wouldn't call it hot press, but I wouldn't call it the most textured watercolour paper I've ever used. So this is fine for working on. Not that I'm going to be doing any watercolour painting on it, it's just it were a piece of paper that I felt at the time would be usable. So that's an important shape, because it gives that, you know, that sleeping kind of a pose. So we've got, when you're talking about babies, it's all about little podgy roundness. Everything's, because of proportions in babies, everything's very exaggerated. And look at that on the arm. Looks like He-Man. If that were proportional on an adult, it'd be like the Hulk. But in babies it's not. Get one of the fingers in there, and the good thing about this is you don't see too much detail in the hand, which is good because hands aren't easy to do. Again, that roundness that you get in babies, and so we can pull that down a bit. There you go. That comes to about there, and we can take a measurement across from the eye. So it goes round, round again, you see, round. Then you get an idea of that it's resting on something. And for me, I think that's the basic drawing done. I'm going to make an adjustment in the ear. There may be some issues with the eye to deal with, but we'll do that as we're going along. And we're trying to remind ourselves that we're not doing a photograph of a baby. Remember, this is a stone monument of some kind. And what we mustn't forget, although have I got enough space, is its wings. I'm just going to, I don't want to put too much detail into that because the main focus is round here. That's a bit of a backdrop to give it a bit of narrative, really. So the detail will, I'm not even being particularly detailed with that. Some areas of 3D space to consider. Right, let's see if we can get a bit of detail into this eye. because it's a curve that, we've got to decide here where the light's coming from, and for me it looks as though it's coming somehow like that, or maybe there, between there and there. So areas like that round here are going to be darker than round here. So with this eye, I'll put a little bit of dark there, graduating into a lighter area there. Then we've got a little bit of a lid above the eye there, and a darker area there. But what I'm going to do is possibly, for the time being, put a bit of music on, and because really most of this is shading now, and I'll pop in occasionally and explain what I'm doing with it though. For the next phase, I'm going to use one of these blending sticks to bring the tones together and blend them up a little bit and make them a bit more solid. Not everywhere, but in certain areas. For example, maybe round here. That's all it does. It kind of stops it from being linear, and it gives it extra different types of texture. And the trick is just using it in certain areas. Although I am going to go over quite a bit of this with this. And then we're going to reapply with a much darker colour. So that's that bit done. All I want to do now is put some darker areas, and I'm going to be very sparing, and I'm going to use this bullet pencil, if you want to call it. It's a big graphite stick to reapply large areas of dark. So for example here, just to reinforce certain areas, not absolutely everywhere. You can't really do an awful lot of detail with these because they're fairly clumsy things, and you need quite a large area to make them work. So they do tend to be things that I use to fill in where needed in dark areas when you need to reapply stuff. So we'll keep going on with this. that I think is probably where I might leave it. So that's been the painting that had the theme Daydream. I hope that covers what we were thinking about, and it's a pencil sketch just using these 3 items on paper. So you have a go and use basic tools. You don't have to go out and buy the most elaborate stuff. You can create great art with minimal amount of tools. So thank you for your time, and we'll see you in another creative art session soon. Bye.